Okay, thank you for your interesting speech. So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Judge, most of the arguments coming from opposition is mostly dependent on the fact that they do not have much time. They're not going to study politics. They do not have much knowledge about the world. But Judge, the biggest problem coming from opposition here is that one, they never ever engaged with our principal argument, which is our point about teenagers have the right to actually vote in the future. And 2 is they fail to talk about what is actually mutually exclusive on their side. What is the difference between these teenagers and university students and adults ultimately, right? And 3 is they were very one-dimensional. They were not charitable to our side, while our DPM could successfully engage with their best case, which is even if they're in their best case, peer pressure still works. Panel, I will answer 2 questions in my speech. 1, can the motion actually be justified? And 2, rational choices, will it be actually made by teenagers? And can it actually lead to a better society? But since opposition showed no engagement whatsoever with the first flash, I would like to move on to the second one. So then the government proved and characterized how teenagers are likely to act. But then opposition claims that they're going to have 1, puberty, 2, lack of time, 3, likely to be irresponsible, and 4, selfish and not know about the world. So here's a few responses. Puberty. What I do not exactly get what they're trying to talk about here, because 1, they're probably saying that it's very emotional, but Judge, how can emotion really interject or intervene in the process of voting, right? This is very not likely to be the case, because unless the voter directly knows the politician or like has a very negative emotion about the person, this is not likely to happen. And second of all, they said that these teenagers do not have time. But Judge, let's see if this is mutually exclusive. I'm going to divide the categories into teenagers, 18 years old to the early stage of an adult, and last but not least, the adults. So university students, they have a part-time job and they study as well, but they still do have the right to vote, right? And adults, they're probably really busy trying to earn a lot of money for their family and whatnot. And they have less time. So we do not get why this is mutually exclusive. This is very lacking coming from opposition. Then they were saying that teenagers are very irresponsible. So Judge, this actually has a tension, because they previously mentioned that they're only going to vote for themselves. So if they have the interest to actually go off and do politics and vote, why are they going to be irresponsible, like have less voting rates? So here's the response to this. 1, they actually have the most amount of years left in the society, right? Because they're the youngest one, they're actually voting. They have more amount of time they're going to spend in the society. This makes them automatically vote for long-term solutions as well, opposed to other adults. 2, is that they sort of feel an obligation for the next generation, because they grew up in such a problematic society with a lot of racism and a lot of extreme environmental problems. And 3, people around them are likely to somehow pressure them in a good way to because they're actually voting at this point of life, they're probably going to ask them to ultimately study for politics, not only politics, but actually issues that exist in the current status quo. Last response to them saying that teenagers are likely to be very selfish and they're probably not going to know about the world. There's several responses to this. Teenagers grew up in a very problematic society, right? As globalization actually happens in the current status quo, problems are actually increasing. Conflicts between religion, race, and more are actually going on in society, and including environmental problems. Because the students are pretty much the closest one to this, because they had hands-on experience. Judge, let me mention here the mutually exclusive characteristic of students and teenagers around 16. So do adults actually meet a lot of people? Not likely to be the case, because the only people they meet ever is the people in their jobs. But on the other hand, students can actually have exposure to people around them in their schools. Therefore, they're much more likely to have diverse thoughts and likely to know more about the problems that exist in the status quo. Ultimately, we win this 2 clashes. Very proud to propose. Thank you.